How did things change? Because it seemed like there was great traction between the Nationals and the White Sox. How did the Red Sox squeeze in to get Chris Sale?
One word, one name, Moncada. Yoan Moncada is one of those. I think he's seen as the number one prospect in baseball, kind of a franchise changer. And while the Nationals kept throwing pieces in there, and they really wanted to make that deal, at the end of the day, let me say this about Yoan Moncada. And when you last summer in San Diego, when you walked into the Futures clubhouse, with these young minor leaguers, when they said to you, "Go find the number one guy," you would go to Yoan Moncada. He's just got that look about him. And when you got a chance, you have a chance to get a player like that. You do it. The risk for the Red Sox is you now have 3 years of Chris Sale. Yeah. You got to go to the World Series now, because this is one of those trades, and they gave up a pitcher named Kopech who was throwing 100 miles an hour in the Arizona Fall League. That's a trade that can haunt you for years. But that's why people like me love Dave Dombrowski. He's the guy that has traded prospects through the years to get David Price, Miguel Cabrera, Yoenis Cespedes, Max Scherzer. That's what he does. If we got a chance to win now, we're going to try to win now. That's what he did.
Yeah, his acumen in that department is really without challenge. You can't contest it. He's hit so many home runs. You just mentioned a bunch of them. Let me ask you this, because I hit a few minutes on. I think there's still a segment, although I think it's certainly decreased. People who know the story, I think they can realize the shift in philosophy, that maybe expect the Yankees to overreact to this. You and I both know the Yankees are now embracing a very different business model. You don't think they waver from that, do you?
Well, I think the competitive part of them says we want to go out and do something. But in terms of reacting to that or changing the big picture look at it, no way. I mean, Hal Steinbrenner is in charge now, and they have a long-term view that these kids are going to be a foundation for 10 years. And you know what's interesting about that is they will tell you that Yankee fans are smart, that they have followed these guys on social media. And a couple of years ago, they brought in a bunch of guys for a thing with season ticket holders. Fans were excited about Aaron Judge and Greg Bird. They wanted to meet these guys. They were ready for them. And that's sort of helped them move the process along and say, yeah, we get it. We're going to bring in a bunch of guys that are young and energized. You saw it in the clubhouse last year, and they got a chance to get better. It's what we had wasn't working, so let's pivot. But would they now be more inclined to go give Aroldis Chapman $90 million? I think they might do that anyway, but certainly, you are aware of what the Red Sox are doing.
Yeah. If the Yankees don't get Chapman, where do you think he goes?
Well, I think we got musical chairs. I think the Nationals feel spurred. They didn't get Chris Sale. The Dodgers want him. So, yeah, Kenley Jansen and Aroldis Chapman. Marlins are going to get one of those guys. I just feel they're going to spend the money. And then that leaves Yankees, Nationals, Dodgers looking at some combination of that, and somebody's going to get left out. The interesting one is Zach Britton in Baltimore. He's the best reliever in the game. So now you've seen Wade Davis just get traded from Kansas City to Chicago and get a great young player in Jorge Soler. A great young player. Will he be a great major leaguer? I don't know.
No, I got you.
But, yeah, and so now you have the best guy, and you have him for 2 more years. Do you now trade him to fill one of the 3 or 4 holes that you have? That's the gossip today. They say we're going to stay the course. We're going to take a strength and maintain a strength, but you got to be tempted.
It is tempting because the recent, last couple of years, we've seen guys like Miller. I mean, guys getting 6. That's an outlier. I don't know that you're going to see that again in the postseason. But yeah, the emphasis on those final 6, 7, 8, 9 outs, it's extra urgency. So there's a lot of things that teams have to debate internally, no doubt. Richard Justice with us here, MLB Network reporter, insider, Tiki and Tierney show. Let me ask you this here, Richard. Obviously, Bruce Bochy's a great skipper. Obviously, the Giants bullpen. They played so much baseball over the past 6 years. They just fell flat. Their arms were tired, and they blew 30-something saves. They had to make a move. Melanson is good. I'd say he's very good. But is that enough to fix completely what ailed the Giants last season?
Well, I think they had enough other young guys emerge last year that they feel like, okay, when they won 3 World Series over 5 years or whatever it was, the bullpen was the only stable part of the team. Everybody else came and went. They feel like, okay, if we get the 9th inning locked down, then that stabilizes everything in front of that. And I think they feel good about where they are at that, and that You know, 5 years ago, Papelbon got 5 years, $50 million, and we thought the world had ended. They'd ever seen a closer get that kind of money. Mark Melanson gets more than that, and Jansen and Chapman are getting more than that. But it just reflects a change in the game. It's a weak free agent market for starting pitchers, and you do what you can to improve your club.
I wanted to ask you about Bryce Harper before I let you go. Now, there's a couple of stories. Obviously, he's going to get big money. Does it start with a 4? Well, that's what was floated the last couple of days. We'll see. I don't have an issue with it because if you actually do the math, compared to some of the NBA contracts, guys making $30 million, 41 home games versus 81 20,000-seat venues versus 40 and 50,000-seat venues. So you can make a case, if you do the math properly, that a guy like Bryce Harper and Mike Trout and these guys are worth $40 million. But do you think are the Nationals additionally motivated because they believe that he really will leave and this is their 2-year window to win a championship? Do you think he leaves?
I think Scott Boras takes all of his clients to free agency. And the only reason he didn't take Steven Strasburg to free agency is Strasburg said, I'm happy in Washington. I want to stay here. Scott believes that the market should set the value of a player. Also, if you're Bryce Harper, look, Steph Curry's salary is paid, his income, a small portion of it comes from the Golden State Warriors. A small portion of LeBron James' income comes from the Cleveland Cavaliers. So where is Bryce Harper's earning power greatest? In pinstripes or in Washington? We know what the answer to that is. Now, it's a lifetime. A couple of years is a lifetime. He could be happy there. He could be a great player. He could regress. We don't know. But I think the idea that he could be signed, it would have to be something so outrageous that even those of us accustomed to being shocked would go, wait a minute, that one doesn't compute.
Is he a little overrated? Based on how he dipped. He had a bad year last year, Rich.
Yeah, for him, knowing him, I'm knowing what kind of player he is. If we'd had this conversation a year ago, I'd say he's probably underrated. He's one of the great players you've ever seen. Just the way he played last year, there had to be something physically wrong with him. That's not who he is. But his career arc is still being written. We don't know quite what he is yet. But in terms of the things you can measure, I don't know if there's ever been a player you'd be more happy to have on your team.
Well, how about Mike Trout?
Mike Trout's the best player on the planet, and by miles. Well, Bryce Harper. The thing about Bryce Harper, we're talking about potential. Mike Trout's done it, and he does it every day of the week. Any way you draw up what you want, intangibles, tangibles, all that. That's Mike Trout. He's the gold standard.